are headlining Allegiance now, which is going to open on Broadway probably in a year and a half or 2 years from now.
Yeah, and alongside with an incredible cast, of which Paul is here with us as well. And Paul, we'll get to that, but Paul plays George's father. Now, if someone is wondering how that might be possible.
George goes back in time. But the story takes place in the present, and then there's a flashback to the past. So, and the younger George is played by Taylor Leung.
Who watches Glee here? Anybody?
Yeah, so he's the Asian, head of the Warblers. He's the Asian Warbler on Glee. And one of the
amazing,
most glorious
amazing
voices on...
incredible actor.
Right, he's currently headlining Godspell in New York City.
Broadway.
Yeah, so on Broadway. But so we're very fortunate to have this amazing cast and to have assembled the most talented Asian actors in the planet together in one show. So yes. Headlined by George.
So that's it. That's the story of how Allegiance was born.
As they said, that's the way we met. And we started email correspondence. And 2 weeks after we began that correspondence, Jay sent me the song that he had written a song for the father character. And that song was the title song, Allegiance. And that song is sung by Paul here. And it is a powerful and deeply moving song. And I must say your performance, Paul, reminds me of my father. You're a fantastic actor and a singer.
Actually, for Jaden Lorenzo again, actually this leads to the next question. Why a musical instead of a play?
Oh, I can answer that. So, as a musical theater writer, I feel sometimes that there are things that can't be expressed merely in words, that the emotions run so high that you just have to sing them. And it's the philosophy behind opera, it's the philosophy behind great dancing. It's not enough to just move, you must dance. It's not enough to just talk, you must sing. And so it's the one thing I think that really separates us from other creatures, our ability to really imagine and to inspire and to be greater than we are in our everyday. And so that's why I work in the medium of musical theater, and it's a great American tradition. It's really invented here in America, this notion of musical theater.
And to me, it's even sort of peculiar that a question like that should be asked, and it is asked of us a lot. Because if you think about it, it sort of starts from the assumption, as if that you can't have a musical about a serious theme, or that every musical has to be sort of a happy song and dance 42nd Street. But when you actually really look at American musical theater and you look at the most poignant, most sort of impactful and beloved musicals, many of them are about serious themes, you know, from West Side Story, which is really Romeo and Juliet and a tragedy, to Miss Saigon, to Les Miserables. I mean, it's just one after the other. So it's kind of interesting. People kind of make that immediate assumption, but then if you stop and think about it, it is the way in which stories reach the widest audience and affect them emotionally the most.
Oh, and actually, this is for Mr. Takei. How is acting for the stage very different than acting in front of the cameras?
Well, it is two different ways of acting. The camera affords you the opportunity to be much more internal. The camera comes real up close, and just maybe the glint in the eyes will capture an emotion. On stage, the audience is away from you, and so, and they might be in the balconies much further up. So you have to physicalize what the emotion is. Each has its own pluses and minuses. In film acting, you have the opportunity to have not only take one, but take two, and if it's not perfect, take 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. With the stage, it's that first take that the audience sees, and so you've got to make that absolutely perfect. In movies, you have to wait months, maybe sometimes, a year and a half before you see the result of your work, when you've almost kind of forgotten about it and moved on to other projects. In the theater, you get that immediate gasp, or that laugh, or that sob, which we will get in Allegiance. And, of course, that applause, and ideally, the standing applause. And that's what gratifies an actor, that immediate connection with an audience's emotion. That's what makes it so fulfilling, and you feel like you're really relating to an audience. So each has its pluses and minuses, but I must say my preference is the theater.
You know, most film actors, when they try and do stage, have trouble with projecting their voice. Well, George doesn't somehow.
Thank you.
And of course, in Allegiance, Lea Salonga is also there. She is definitely one of the best-known Asian Pacific Islander actresses in stage, like right now. How was it like working with her? How was she? What is she like to work with, Mr. Takei?
Well, me. Well, I saw Layna too first in Miss Saigon in London, and she was thrilling on stage. What a glorious voice she has, and so moving. She's a wonderful actress as well. But when I started working with her, well, the first time I met her was in our own living room. Jay wanted to work on some of the music, and we have a piano in our living room. So he invited Layna to come over and work with us. And she said, "It's so cool to be in Sulu's living room." She is so down to earth, and we really got to know each other well, in fact, intimately. When we did the workshop production this past summer, we shared spaces in our dressing room, and we take our shirt off when you're changing or getting made up. And Leah's sitting next to me, and when I took my shirt off, she turns around and she says, "Look, everybody, you can count the six-packs on George's stomach," and she points them out. That's how intimate she will be. She's a very down-to-earth, earthy lady.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And this question is for Mr. Paul Nakauchi. You played a father in the show, Tatsuo Umura. What aspects of your own personal experience do you bring to this role?
Well, like George, my parents were interned during World War II, so I am the son of concentration camp survivors. So I do bring all of what George had talked about to my particular role, because children of concentration camp survivors also were very affected by it. That we had. I knew about it ever since I was a child, and it affected my parents psychologically, and they pass it on to your children. I mean, it's much kind of like Holocaust survivors. So, but I love working with George. George is so gracious and so wonderful, and having watched him, I actually watched the original series on television, not the reruns. But it was in prime time, So he was a major influence on me, and I think most Asian Americans at the time, because he was really the only one of the very few Asian American faces on television and in film. And so I feel very thrilled to be working with George and having remembered all of his episodes. I mean, I can still see them running in my mind. Like that. So, but and anyway, we were talking in the green room that I had forgotten, but I had actually done a little guest spot on Star Trek: The Next Generation. with Richard Beamer, we had a little scene together, and I was playing a Tigerian soldier, and I was like this reptile, you know, thing. But so we also share that in common as well as, you know, in terms of I'm being his father, and we have that one little thing in common with Star Trek.
Well, if you saw Star Trek in the original, you are old enough to play my father. Would you believe Star Trek is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year? 45 years old. I think that's before some of your parents were born.
Probably true, yeah.
Actually, my parents were born before it came out.
Before Star Trek came out in 1966.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're pretty old.
So, thank you. And so, really quickly, actually, for Jaden Lorenzo, what makes Allegiance different from other Asian-themed shows, like, you know, Flower Drum Song?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, this will be the first show, Asian American show, actually written and directed by Asian Americans. It's kind of strange when you think about it. All of the other shows were written by white people. So, and they got it kind of right, but they got it really wrong.
And some of the Asian characters in some of those shows were played by white people.
Right. So this is the first truly organic Asian American musical, and it tells a really important Asian American story that we can all be proud of and make sure that everyone remembers and understands.
Directors, Japanese Canadian, his parents, his father was interned. Japanese Canadians were also put in camps, and people don't know. So there's like a sort of a theme of personal experience and connection from this entire team that goes to the core of the show.
Right. And you know, we just a little plug. We're on Facebook, and we've got flyers up here. You can with QR codes that you can scan to join our Facebook fan page. We have one of the largest Facebook fan pages already of any musical because of the iconic presence of George Takei and Layna Salonga. And so the anticipation behind this is huge. Now you're all very lucky if you're in this area because a year from now, less than a year from now, it's going to be opening in San Diego first.
With George and Layna, it's going to open at the old Theater.
We'll be definitely looking forward to that one. So actually, the question goes back to Paul Nakoji. Your wife is played by Sala Iwamatsu, the daughter of legendary Mako Iwamatsu, and he is a very, he is Tony nominated and Oscar nominated as well.
The first Asian American.
That's right, so he's a legend.
He was nominated for Sand Pebbles.
Yeah, and so how has your interaction been, and how do you find working with her and other members of your cast?
You know, this was my first opportunity to work with Sala. I mean, we had always sort of crossed paths. She had done Miss Saigon, and I had done Miss Saigon, but we had never actually worked together. So this was the first show that I had the opportunity to do that with. And it's so interesting because Mako is such a iconic figure in the whole Asian American acting community, and you know, she's his daughter, you know, and talking to her, it would be interesting to hear her stories of Mako, you know, because here she is, the actress daughter, and her father is this, you know, Academy Award nominated, you know, actor, and how she would, you know, be a little bit apprehensive of him coming to her show and everything. But she's a wonderful, wonderful actress, and if you guys have an opportunity to see the show, she brings so much, you know, to the role, and I just feel so fortunate to have had her be playing my wife.
It's a very special cast with very amazingly sort of coincidental connections between them. Our other actor, which we mentioned before, Telly Leung, who plays young George, young Sam in the show, told us later on that Mako was his inspiration, and he actually wrote, when Mako was about to pass away, he wrote a letter and gave it to Sala to read to Mako on his deathbed about how much Telly had been inspired and motivated by Mako.
I had actually met Mako once. I had done a table read for the movie Last Samurai, and so I got to read one of the roles with him. The guy, the role that I read was Ken Watanabe's role, you know. But so I met him, and I actually, you know, read with him. So that was